Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we are now recording and streaming live to YouTube, so you can begin when you're ready.
Great. All right. Good morning and welcome to this Metro Plan Orlando MAC meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is John Dallas and I'll be chairing this meeting today. We also have a team of folks working to ensure this meeting runs smoothly for us in the room and those listening online. As we continue to meet in person, all committee members are required to be physically present here in the Metro Plan Orlando boardroom for purposes of achieving a quorum. Staff will continue to stream our meetings online for public access. And I've asked Commissioner Ramos to lead us in invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone stand.
Bow our heads. First and foremost, Father God, I pray that our country never forgets what we went through in Pearl Harbor. Father God, I thank you for the continuing and entrusting us with your cities here in Central Florida. Please give us your wisdom and your discernment. May we honor you in all we say this morning. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner. We got to civilize these riotous, no, I'm just kidding. Fellow mayors, let's see. All right. So this morning, I ask everyone to silence your phones and your smart devices. Also ask that all committee members wait to be recognized to speak and to activate your microphones before speaking and turning them back off when you are complete. As a reminder, the microphone is turned on and off by pressing the blue button, the one with the little talking face icon on it, located on the screen in front of you. There are 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public participating virtually who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to request to be recognized. We also accept comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for public comment are posted at metroplan.org/virtual meetings. We want this and all future meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact Metro Plan Orlando. All right, we now have Ms. Larson for our agenda review.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. There is a minor edit to our agenda this morning. Under agency reports and partner updates, you'll see that we have listed John Scarf for FDOT and Mr. Sayase Fine for Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. This morning, instead, we'll have Miss Amy Beckham giving FDOT's report, and Miss Katina Kavoklis for Florida's Turnpike Enterprise. And in other news, you may have heard about the Sunshine Corridor, which is the proposed rail connection that travels from the Orlando Airport through the Convention Center, Southwest Orange County, and beyond. As a part of the Transit Concept and Alternatives Review, also known as TCAR, process, FDOT is hosting 3 in-person meetings along the corridor this week, which are open to the public. The last of those public meetings is tonight, and it's at the Delta Hotels by Marriott in Orlando on Lake Buena Vista. You can see the information here on the slide. There's also a link to the public meetings you can see here. And we also have some happy news. Miss Leilani Veoga of the communications team welcomed a baby boy to her family.
Congratulations.
Yes. So in the picture, that's Leilani, the father Nathan, and little Tavana Nathan. And if you've heard a lot of baby news from us this year, it's true. Tavana is the 3rd Metro Plan baby.
All right.
I kicked us off in January, and then we had Henry of Jason Sartorio's son, in April, and Tavana rounds us out in November. So the Metro Plan baby boom.
A lot of future road builders.
Yes, exactly. We're committed to the future of transportation here. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Wilson for the safety moment.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. Our safety moment this time around is looking at the holiday months and how they might be a little different from a safety standpoint. So we dug into the data as we always do. And the thing that came out most prominent was simple darkness. You know, that the days get shorter, more of us are out after dark, particularly in the evening. And that has quite an impact on our crashes. And so you see overall, comparing December and January to the rest of the year, about 17% higher for KSI crashes and 23 for fatal crashes. What was somewhat surprising was that when we looked at things like alcohol, speeding, aggressive driving, these were actually a little bit lower for those months. So hopefully all of our messaging over the years and combined with social, family and friends pressuring, maybe gets that idea out that be a little more cautious in that respect. But diving a little deeper into the nighttime crashes, when we just look at motor vehicle occupants, about 19% increase for KSIs and 36% for fatals. For pedestrians, it was actually a little, not so much lower, but not as much of an increase, about 25%, 24% for KSI, and 18% for fatal. For bicyclists is where we saw a really big increase, 34% increase for KSI and 85% increase for fatal crashes for those months. So takeaways, if you're a motorist, please slow down. You're going to need more perception, reaction time, and to come to a stop if there's a surprise. Bicyclists, using headlights and taillights, not only a good idea, it's required by law. Reflectors are just insufficient because most crashes happen where the bicyclist is not in front of the headlights until a second or so before impact. And then if you're a pedestrian, give yourself more time to cross. It can be easy to misjudge the speed of an approaching vehicle, especially when it's high speed and at night. So give yourself a little more buffer than you think you need. And that concludes my safety moment for this month.
Just to let you know, I was on 1792 to go to a restaurant parked on the left side of the road, and your safety things came in my head about crossing the road and kind of understand why we may have a few more pedestrian issues in other cities. We have a lot of big roads with not a lot of crossing, so.
So, that statistic is kind of skewed.
Well, again, that's just comparing December and January to the rest of the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't know if there is more bike and pedestrian use, more bike use during the. Certainly, there are the severe crashes are happening. Yeah, during those times. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Would it help if they registered the bikes to know the count?
To know the count of to know how many. Well, that just tells you how many bikes there are. It doesn't tell you how many are being used. There are a lot of bikes sitting in garage. There are many bikes sitting in garages gathering dust with flat tires. So yeah.
Anyone else? Commissioner Jordan Smith.
Is there any data on the age group for motorist crash? Who's the age range for the motorist crashes?
We did look at that in some prior months. I didn't look at that for the nighttime for this particular analysis. But.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
I think we have roll call now.
Anderson,
Here.
Blackwell, Davitt, Dowless,
Here.
Firstner,
Here.
Foraker, Gardner, Guthrie, Henson,
Here,
McCann, Ramos,
Present.
Sackett,
Here.
Slated,
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Thank you. I believe Blackwell and Davitt and maybe Foraker sent, I don't know if Foraker did send in that they would be absent. Do we have a motion to excuse their absences?
So moved.
Mayor Henson, who was the second? Commissioner Scarlett. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. All right. We'll now hear public comments on action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold public comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment or are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have any joining us virtually or would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, we have no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Do we have any members of the public attending in person that wish to make a public comment?
I have not received any requests.
All right, moving right along. And are there any written or submitted comments before the meeting?
There were none.
Great, thank you so much. All right, let's go to agenda reports then. First, we have FDOT District 5, Ms. Beckham. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Beckman, and it's my pleasure to be bringing you the FDOT agency report today. Just a few quick announcements, starting with upcoming and recently started projects. In Orange County, we had some construction improvements start on State Route 436 from Old Cheney Highway to north of University Park Drive. It began recently and is scheduled to continue through the spring of 2025. We also have a safety and resurfacing project on Goldenrod Road from State Route 408 to State Route 50. It recently began and the bi-directional turn lane is closed to accommodate construction, and so that's going on. Starting right after the start of the new year, we're going to have 2 projects scheduled to start. One on State Route 527 Orange Avenue, a milling and resurfacing project at Princeton Street intersection, as well as Washington Street from OBT to I-4. It's a safety and resurfacing project. A few lane closures. I do want to point out where we have our concern for pedestrian and bicyclist safety. There is a sidewalk detour that began at the beginning of this month on westbound Sand Lake Road from I-Drive to Turkey Lake Road, and it will be in place through early 2024. Additionally, we have some intermittent lane closures that will be taking place on Central Florida Parkway and Palm Parkway, and they'll continue through the end of December. Beginning December 11th through the 14th, there will be intermittent nightly ramp closures on westbound I-4 from State Route 50 Colonial Drive from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., as well as a different type of closure. It's going to be a day closure on December 11th through the 15th. There will be intermittent lane closures on State Route 436, that Old Cheney Road to University Park project. So there will be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. some intermittent daily lane closures there. In Osceola County, we're going to have some intermittent lane closures on US 1792 from Portage to Ham Brown Road that continue through 12/15. I'm sorry. In Seminole, we're going to have the Geneva Drive closure continue on through January. There are detour signs in place, as well as a detour that began on Lake Jessup Avenue between State Route 426 and Carib Lane, and it will continue through early 2024. And intermittent nightly right lane closures on eastbound and westbound County Road 46A, the H.E. Thomas Parkway near I-4 and Reinhardt Road. That's going to start today and go through December 11th. So you will see interminutes there. And speaking of that interchange, we have a few upcoming events in December. Specifically, you were referred to the Sunshine Corridor meeting that the last one is this evening. And we will have public meetings next week on the I-4 interchanges at 46A. Concerning 46A and 1792. There's a virtual option on Wednesday evening, December 13th at 5 p.m. It's going to start. It does require advanced registration though to be given the link. So you would go to fdot.tips/I4 meeting to pre-register. And on Thursday, December 14th, we would love to have you join us in person at 5 p.m. at the Weston Lake Mary Orlando at 2974 International Parkway in Lake Mary, so that we can discuss those interchanges with you. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beckman. Any questions? All right, great. Okay, next up, we have from Lynx, Ms. Whitten. Welcome.
Good morning, thank you. Lynx is currently working on our national transit database reporting for the year. That's our operational and financial data will report to the Federal Transit Administration, and that process will go through January. We've also wrapped up our onboard survey effort. I think I've talked about a couple meetings, and that data, the final report will be available on our golynx.com website, as well as some rider profiles. We have the overall rider profile, and then we also have them by county. And then we have a larger database that's available to share with our local partners if they're looking for any particular area, zip code. Just to give a quick overview, our average rider based on 7,500 average surveys is of average age 40, earning around 27,000 annual household income. 57% are employed full-time and 47% are in the service industry. They are using Lynx about 5 to 7 days per week. So this just confirms Lynx is playing a critical role in providing essential mobility for our lower income workers in Central Florida. And we have a lot of data, so we're happy to share if there's any particular area that you would like to look at. And then lastly, our new Florida Mall Transfer Super Stop is opening on Sunday. So we're excited about that, and staff will be out there on Monday to help direct passengers to the new bays. Yep, the Florida Mall Super Stop.
Very good. Any questions? What were the stat? You said average age 40 years old and what average salary?
26,900, so just under 27,000.
That's tough.
For the household.
With housing costs now. Wow. All right. Anything else? All right. Next we have from the Florida Turnpike, Miss Caviclis.
Yes, you got that right. Thank you so much. We have no new agency updates. This is more of me just introducing myself. I'm the new Turnpike Transportation Planning Manager, and I just look forward to working with all of you. Thank
Any
you.
questions? Welcome. We'll get you a pass this time, but next time. All right, action items. We have 3 action items. First, we need the approval of the November 2nd, 2023 meeting minutes. Are there any changes to it, or do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mayor Henson first, and we have Mayor Sladak second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. Now we have revision to the 2024 MTP, which is tab 2 in your agenda. Ms. Laurent, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Taylor Laurent, and I'll be presenting the proposed revisions to our 2045 MTP. You can follow along with more information about this in tab 2 of your agenda if you'd like. But as I start talking about the proposed revisions, there are 2 terms you're going to hear a lot from me today. The first is modification, which represents a small or minor change to the document. And then the second is an amendment, which represents a larger or more significant change. Now, while these 2 terms are very different, I'm going to be taking them through the exact same process today of presenting both the modifications and amendments to you, and ultimately asking for your recommendation for approval of the changes. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. Our first modification is what we refer to as our tip refresh. This is an annual administrative change that is done to make sure that the first 5 years of our 2045 MTP are consistent with the Transportation Improvement Program. So with this, there are no changes to the existing project cost feasibility. Our second item is an amendment to incorporate the federal discretionary raise grant that was awarded to the city of St. Cloud for their 10th Street project. So with the addition of that project, there are no impacts to existing project cost feasibility. Item 3 is an amendment to also, kind of along the same vein, identify state funding appropriations that have been awarded to 7 projects throughout our 3-county area. And those are listed on the screen as well as in tab 2 of your agendas. With the notations on these projects to showcase the state funding appropriations, there were no impacts to existing project cost feasibility. Item 4 is a modification meant to identify the bicycle and pedestrian projects that have already been included in our MTP as needs, but identifying them as potentially eligible for the Sun Trail program funding. So this is a minor revision that was made to the project descriptions showcasing that eligibility, and there were no changes to the project cost feasibility due to that change. Item 5 is also a modification, very similar, but this time focused on locally funded projects that could potentially be eligible for Sun Trail program funding. So those descriptions were adjusted to include that item about eligibility, and there were no impacts to the existing project cost feasibility due to that. Item 6 is also a modification, this time to adjust the State Road 417 widening project's limits, shortening them slightly to end at North Reinhardt Road. But with the change to those limits, there were no changes to the project costs. So there were no impacts to existing project cost feasibility. Then item 7 is a series of both amendments and modifications meant to maintain planning consistency with our local partners' plans, as well as requests that we have received. There were no impacts or changes to existing project cost feasibility from these revisions. I will go through and kind of characterize what those amendments and modifications look like. So it really begins with updating a few of the MTP ID numbers, particularly adding them to our regional programs for consistency with the formatting of the entire cost feasible plan, also making it a little easier to identify where those programs are. It's a bit of an administrative change there. There were a few updates to project names and limits for consistency with the adopted TIP and the 5-year work program. And there were also a few revisions to project limits to adjust the logic for logical termini as we get closer to implementing some of these different projects. And there were also a few duplicate needs that have been identified, whether it was originally in the plan or there's a project that's been amended that now encompasses an already existing project. So we've gone through and cleaned up any of those duplications as well. And I did receive a few questions about that last item in advance of the meeting. So as an example, we had the State Road 414 project from US 441 to State Road 434 listed twice under 2 different MTP ID numbers. You'll see in your agenda tab 2 that the revision is to remove item 2209, leaving the one project listing under ID number 1007. So that's kind of how all of those are characterized in the plan, as well as the summary plan revisions. Then there were 2 additional revisions that were requested by partners over the past few meetings. The first being to MTP ID number 8114, the Old Lake Wilson project in Osceola County. If this would be a modification to correct the CEI project phase cost from 7.7 million to 9.7 million, a little bit of a Scrivener's error there. And then an additional revision to MTP ID number 5030. This is for the State Road 434 trail tunnel that is proposed in Seminole County. That is to correct the project name, which was erroneously put in as State Road 424. We know it's on 434. So with that, unless there are any questions about the proposed revisions that I've described, I will be asking for you to make a motion to recommend approval of the proposed revisions as they've been presented today.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion to approve? Mayor Sladak, second. Mayor Henson, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Page. Going to tab 3, 2024 board and committee meeting calendar. Wait, did I get that right? Hang on. Yeah, tab 3, approval of the 2024 board committee meeting calendar is requested. The calendar has been included in tab 3 for reference. And Ms. Larson?
Yes, so as mentioned, it is in tab 3 and also shown here. The MAC meeting is always held the Thursday prior to the board meeting at 9:30 in the morning. And that calendar reflects this for 2024. The only adjustment to the set schedule is for the June-July cycle, which had our meeting would have been on July 4th, but for obvious reasons, we've moved it to June 27th, 2 week prior. And that's the only change.
Right. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and second, Slade Atkinson. They are quick on the buzzer today. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. Thanks, folks. All right, we are now at presentations and status updates. We have 4 information presentations today. Please hold questions until the presentations end, if possible. And status update, Vision Zero Action Plan and SS4A grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning again, everyone. I'm going to start off my update with our new Vision Zero video, which is kind of the answers the why as to what we're doing. So
Well, I have been in Central Florida for 24 years. I have a lot of friends that have been in accidents, like really bad accidents. One minute you can be here and the next minute you can be gone. I was in an accident and the car just flipped out. My mom got injured, the back of her neck. It had a negative effect on us.
Just a train, you know, the train, there's a car right in front of us and then boom, ow.
Fue un accidente bastante grave. Pasé por 2 cirugías. Aún estoy en muchos tratamientos. Y actualmente todavía no me he recuperado del todo. Las lesiones que deja un accidente son garrafales.
I had a couple good friends die from a drunk driver. One was like a grandfather to me.
My sister's husband was killed in a car accident, and it affected not only her life, but her children's life, their grandchildren's lives.
My youngest nephew was killed recently, earlier this year, in a bicycle versus pickup truck. It was such a shock to hear of his death. We do love him. We miss him.
Just made me think about my life a little bit more. That could have been me, it could have been anybody.
Okay, people here they're not everybody, but there are enough crazy drivers. They're in a hurry. They don't care. They'll run red lights.
Well, you got to be cautious. You got to have your eyes all around you.
Some of the streets don't have crosswalks or crossing guards, more or less. It's just kids' safety is really my concern in Central Florida.
There's 3 different memorials that I see. It's a young man who was on a skateboard at 6 a.m. that ended up being killed by a car. And almost right across the street from where he died, a 77-year-old man was killed on a bicycle.
And people should be concerned about that.
If there were no more pedestrian accidents or traffic accidents at all, a lot more people will be outside enjoying life.
Where people's not afraid to walk down the street, cross the street, ride their bike.
Be great. Be great.
And people would just be happier, honestly, just going outside, having fun with their families.
Si me imagino el mundo si nadie muriera en un accidente, pues sí. Sería muy, muy bueno.
With no accidents, that'd be wonderful.
I imagine the world would be an incredible place because when you see those markers and you think of the folks, what futures they had or could have had, what could have they contributed to our community, to our society, to their families.
And you start thinking about these things and wonder if there could have been something that could have prevented that from happening.
Everybody want to live their life. Everybody want to enjoy freedom. Everybody want to, just live life to the fullest.
So yeah, great job by our public outreach team to put the stories behind the numbers that we share all the time. You can share the link to that video. It's on the MetroPlan YouTube site, YouTube page, and then there's the Vision Zero Central Florida site, which I'll be sharing a little more on in a couple minutes. So this presentation will be talking about, again, status up till date, what we've been doing with the high injury network, our public engagement efforts, the countermeasures that we're starting to identify, policy benchmarking, what sort of things do we need to do with our plans and policies that will further this effort, looking at what are the reduction goals that we can conceivably achieve in the coming years and decades. And then there's just the next steps of the process. So first off, the high injury network. So again, these are the worst of the worst. Our high injury network is 258 miles of centerline miles long. As you can see here, nearly 60% of these are FDOT roads, 30% county, and over 10% municipal roads. As noted in the video, 41% of our deaths are happening on 2% of our roads, and similarly, 47% of our KSI crashes. And you can see the map here showing the network as well as the intersections. We will have print out a list of those coming out this week or early next week in preparation for our board meeting next week. Some more data about the high injury network. The average posted speed on these particularly problematic roads, 43 miles per hour, and the average 85th percentile speed, 53 miles per hour. More than half of the injury network runs through areas that are classified as disadvantaged communities, while only a quarter of our regional population meets that criteria. So very overrepresented. So public engagement. So first off, I want to talk about our Vision Zero website. Yeah, so this is the front page, and the really interesting first segment here is the dashboard. And so this is a map-based interface where all of our crash data is visualized. And here you can see the entire total of crashes for the entire metro area and what percent are the different types of different modes for the crashes. And then there's a whole list of different filters that you can apply on the side. So for example, you can zoom into your jurisdiction and see what results you get there. So it refreshes the numbers, gives you the percentage of the entire region, your portion, for that particular jurisdiction. Shows you what proportion of these crashes are happening on 2, 4, and 6 lane roads, and what the posted speeds are for those crashes, what types of crashes generally are occurring. And then you can also filter if you want to drill in deeper. You could look at, say, just pedestrian crashes. And then as you zoom in farther out, you just see the KSI crashes, but as you zoom in, you'll see all the crashes represented. Couple of things to note in these filters is that the default is not to show the limited access highways, but that is something that we can turn on. And it's not something, we're not covering limited access for our overall plan. That's a state level. And then also we exclude private roads and parking lots. But again, this is something that we can still turn on in the mapping to, if you want to see how those are represented. So lots of data that you can play with on the dashboard. Another useful part of the site is our interface where the public can provide feedback to us. The crash data is great, but it's also nice to have some qualitative information from users as to what kind of behaviors they see while they're out there, what particular physical problems they might, maybe a bad sightline at a particular intersection. So they can do the reporting here. And we do have this set up so that you can select a language. So we have both Spanish and Haitian Creole. And so then you can scroll through this, and this is formatted to work for smartphone and tablet as well, to indicate what type of crash problem, what kind of safety problem generally, what modes it might apply to. A mapping function where people can plot the problem. We're encouraging people to focus on the high injury network, but if there are other problems they want to identify elsewhere off that network, it's fine as well. And then some space for them to provide details. They can upload a photograph of the area, and just any other thoughts they have about the issue. So hoping to get good feedback from the public on that. And then just a general resources page where we have things like the presentations and minutes for our regional task force, the partners, calendar of events for where you can go and interact with our planning team on learning more about the program, et cetera. So wide range of resources there. So that is it for the website.
Question.
Yeah.
How often is it updated?
So the crash data, we will be able to update that on an annual basis. We get that on an ongoing basis from the state. We use the state's Signal 4 crash database, which is all compiled from all the law enforcement agencies, all of their crash reports. So once that is all finalized, we can bring that in, and we have processes set in place for updating all of the data, and to not only updating it, but also linking it to all the environmental and roadway data that helps us to do a good analysis of our safety problems.
My concern is that if we're waiting for a year to find a problem, it's compounded. Be a lot better if we can get more interactive.
Yeah. Well, from the standpoint of identifying our high injury network, we're starting with the five years of past. So we need to know where we've historically had the problems. Going forward, what we hope is that data will tell us if our work is having an impact, and that can take some time. Sometimes it takes a few years. Sometimes, absolutely right.
Very frustrating.
Sure.
I mean, on 436 in Castleberry, we've had a problem for the last 25 years. And I brought it up to Alex a long time ago. We had FDOT did a study and found that the problem was costly to fix. So it was shelved, and we're still having deaths along that corridor, and nothing's been done. And we're waiting for some answers. So
right. All right, thank you. So moving ahead, yeah.
Oh,
no.
got a quick question. So I'm on the Oviedo one and I've zoomed in and there are dots that look like it may be just somebody ran into a parked car. It looks like it's that granular. Am I
Mhm.
interpreting that correctly?
Yes, I mean, yeah, so as you zoom in, like I said, the magenta dots are
Bad.
the serious, those are serious and fatal. All the other ones are some other level of injury and some of them no injury.
Okay.
So, and yes, there's a great deal of detail in there. It
Okay,
can
but
be
it-
quite overwhelming, so we need to really filter down to the things that are most important from a serious injury and fatality standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. But I just because I'm going to share this with people and I want to make sure that I'm explaining because when you go down, you look at it, you think, there are accidents everywhere. Well, it could be as small as a parked car being hit. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, any crash that involves a motor vehicle, a moving motor vehicle, right, is going to be represented there. All right, so other public engagement efforts, we are working on fact sheets for every jurisdiction from regional on down to the municipal. So that will show the numbers, give an overview of what the Vision Zero process is and what we hope to get out of it and how people can get involved.
You pause for a question from Mayor Anderson?
Yeah.
Sure. I was thinking about what Mayor Hansen was saying, and at this stage, is this website intended to stress behavioral changes for the drivers? Or or communicating, structural changes that are forthcoming? I think that's kind of at the core of what, what's the mission of putting this out there in public engagement? Is it to engage people, to educate them that speed kills? This is why we're enforcing, that's an enforcement thing. We're paying attention to it, do your part to do that. Put lights on your bicycles, those kinds of things. And then, by the way, know that, your planning organization, Metro Plan, is also looking at structural solutions to preventing these accidents. And I think that if it was really, really clear that the reason for the public engagement is behavioral change first, while billions of dollars flow into infrastructure, I think that would make me feel a lot better as a way that this is used and promoted. For example, on a city website, I just hate to have it pop up and, everyone saying, well, why aren't you doing anything about this? And so that's kind of, if the mission behind it is behavioral change, and that's the way the website presents itself, that's what y'all do with us every meeting. Basically, it says speed kills and make sure the lights are turned on at night, particularly on intersections. And by the way, there's a lot of other things that are happening, but they're not happening really, really quickly.
Right.
So I'm just reflecting back that if the website has a particular communication mission, if it's education, I think this is great. And I think the cities will, can co-promote it. But that's just my comment.
Yeah. Well, it's all of the above. So yes, it's both the behavioral and the infrastructure that we have to advance on both of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all in development, and we're using the data to inform both the behavioral and the infrastructure. So we want to be able to say, you need to do this, and here's the data that supports your behavioral change. So
I just found it really compelling every time you talk about how dropping speeds 5 miles an hour saves lives.
Mm-hmm.
And if that was the blinking message that came up every time you had the accident report, dropping speeds 5 miles an hour saves lives. I think it would be a good way to introduce the topic. So I'm going to stop.
All right, so additional things we're working on for public engagement, an elected officials guide. So helping you all understand what you can do through your roles to advance this whole effort. Of course, local agency events are ramping up. A number of them have already hit the ground. We are working on a safety summit with FDOT for the end of January on the 31st. Details to come on that. And we're also collecting personal stories. There's a site called Driving Down Heartache, which you can access through our resources page, where if people want to share their stories, they can do so there. So countermeasures. We're wrapping up an engineering countermeasures handbook. It just gives a snapshot view of the various built environment countermeasures, giving an idea of what they are, what they can achieve, and what their relative costs are, and where they're likely to be best implemented. And then we're also working on the non-infrastructure countermeasures as well as we were just discussing. Benchmarking. This is a process that we've been going through at the regional level with MetroPlan, but this is also happening starting up at the local levels of looking at all of our relevant plans, any plan or policy that might be relevant in some form or fashion to safety, gets a review and take a look at where can we make improvements and changes to advance the overall safety picture. Crash reduction goals. This was a discussion that our task force had, looking at some of the projections based on how aggressive can we or should we be at trying to reduce our crashes. Sorry for the faded text on there, but the 5 bars there are 2018 through 22, which are the 5 years of crash data that we've been using. And then orange there is a 10% reduction, red is a 5% reduction, green is a 2.5% reduction, and purple is a 1% reduction per year. So it shows us how long it would take us to get to zero at those different rates. Anyway, so this is kind of an ongoing discussion, recognizing that the challenges of funding and just the scope of the problem. So next steps, we are continuing to work on the high injury network and coordinating the regional with the county and municipal. We want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, that we're identifying projects, for example, that are already on the books in the plans that we expect would have a positive impact. And also looking at near-term quick build opportunities, things that might not be a big enough project to go into, say, the TIP, but that could still have an impact. And then estimating costs for the overall program. And then another key thing is looking for good candidates for infrastructure projects, because those could be eligible for the new federal implementation funds. We got the planning grant, and this will make us eligible for actually getting things built on the ground. Vision Zero resolutions. This will be coming in toward the end of the process, making all of our local government resolutions to setting targets to reaching zero, adopting the plans, and setting up methods for evaluating our progress. Repeating again, showing you the project schedule. You've seen this before. So we're in that phase of looking at countermeasures and policy review, and in the new year, we'll start talking about projects and strategies. Our next task force meeting is January 16th. As far as the local agency plans, all of them are underway now. The hub site, as you saw, is up and running, and we'll be adding to that. The high injury network will be added to that next week. And as I said, looking into countermeasures and policies now as we move forward. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any additional questions.
Anyone else? And you'll pretty much be advising us on how we can aid you in MetroPlan in terms of spreading the word on that. And is that video easily found on the YouTube channel, or what's the title of it if we wanted? I mean, there's a great video. I wouldn't mind if we pushed it out.
Yeah, yes, I mean, it's actually, if you pull up the YouTube channel now, it's the very first one.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. All right, second, we have the urban area boundary smoothness process from our illustrious leader, Alex Trauger. Come on up. Yeah, sometimes we put out informational text, so that's even more helpful for that.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. So something we take up every 10 years is smoothing our urban area boundary. Over the past 45 days, I've been working with your staffs and all of our regional partners in reviewing what the census has provided us and our room for making adjustments within federal and state regulation. So a little bit of background here. Again, every 10 years following the census, or a couple of years following the census, when prompted, we have to update our board's apportionment plan that looks at board membership. Our board actually approved their apportionment plan earlier this year in September. MAC maintained a seat, and actually based on the growth of the city of St. Cloud, they're going to be moving up to our governing board based on their population. We also updated our metropolitan planning area, or reaffirmed our metropolitan planning area. And for Metro Plan Orlando, that's Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County. So we are the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the three-county area as we know it. But we're also the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the urbanized areas, the Kissimmee and the Orlando urbanized areas. So we're at this place in time where we have to adjust the urban area boundary. So what does that mean? What does that entail? The census, the United States, all of the US's demographers, they really drive the population and tracking the trends of different people and growth patterns. So they published a couple years ago an updated methodology for defining urbanized areas, or what is urban. So that method was updated. Historically, it looked at population densities. They changed it to housing densities. As you can imagine, it's a little easier to count houses than it is people. And that method actually benefits us based on in other seasonal areas that have fluctuations in seasonal population to represent kind of the urban landscape. But what the census does is they use a national methodology and they look at census blocks. So their kind of level of geography, their census blocks. And they conduct a national analysis and identify areas that are urban. They then, based on the regulations, provide DOT and metropolitan planning organizations the latitude to make adjustments to smooth that urban area boundary. They're using really hard rules. They're not looking at anything but housing densities, within a concentration, within a block. So they offer this opportunity for local governments to make sure it looks right based on your comprehensive plans, based on your local policies. So that's really what I've been doing with your staffs over the past 30, 45 days is making sure it's consistent with urban growth boundaries, service provisions, but also other comprehensive planning policies that may have a relationship to this process. So DOT took a stab at updating the urban boundary and made a recommendation. My team also reviewed what DOT had proposed, what we have currently adopted in the 2010 boundary, and then I've worked with your staffs in kind of polishing that, making sure that it aligns with your adopted plans as is. So the goal of this is to take this back to you and our governing board at your next cycle, next year, January, February cycle. Really important to note to our citizens groups, but also to our elected officials, that this boundary, this identification of an urban area is really specific to federal transportation funds and also FEMA reimbursements. This does by no means usurp or override any of your local government land planning or service provision authority. So this is 100% as it relates to Metro Plan Orlando money and potentially FEMA reimbursements in the event of a natural disaster. Another important note here, as we're smoothing the boundary and bringing a larger area into, or bringing more area into what we classify as urban, is it doesn't change our federal funds, the amount that we get. The census is delineated urban boundary, and that population within that boundary sets the number for our formula. Just because we may add a couple thousand more people into the boundary, it doesn't change that formula. So we can't use this process to manipulate federal formulas per se. So keep that in mind. But most important note is there at the bottom is this is specific to transportation funds, and it doesn't override any of your local land planning authority. We have gotten really good, productive, constructive feedback from our local partners, especially those on the fringe. So while you see, 8 municipalities here providing comment, the real focus, if you're a core city, Castleberry, Edgewood, Lake Mary, and you're kind of core corridor, and you don't have kind of a fringe on the kind of exterior of our 3-county area, you're always in the urbanized area. So we worked specifically with the municipalities on the periphery of our region to make sure that it was consistent with their plans and we weren't doing anything out of bounds there. Because the Orlando area actually extends into Lake County, we've been working closely with the Lake County MPO, so my counterpart there, and also coordinating with the municipalities affected. So we're smoothing that Orlando boundary that is in the Claremont area of Lake County. So moving forward, what do we do from here? Like I mentioned, we got a lot of good constructive feedback. Most of county staff had to do with acknowledging the sensitivities of rural settlement, especially in Orange County, as in Osceola County, as well as in Seminole. So there's a lot of ensuring that the boundaries that we're setting don't encroach to the maximum extent feasible into those areas. Just knowing that we are acknowledging that even though there's no land planning impact, we acknowledge that it may create a wrinkle. So I'll be documenting all of that and sending that out to you early January, so you can see the feedback we received and how we responded to that, and then the adjustments that we're making in the urban boundary. I have some meetings later this month with DOT to kind of take the local agency feedback, make sure they don't have any heartburn based on any of the local comments. Based on what I've seen, I don't think we'll have any issues moving forward. But again, the goal is to take this back to you, an adjusted urban area boundary at your next meeting, which is early February of next year. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to field them. But I think what's important to note is your staffs, and especially the staffs of our impacted jurisdictions, have been contacted, coordinated, and are supportive of how we're moving forward. So with that, thank you so much.
Any questions? All right, thanks, Alex. Next, we have electric vehicles readiness study with Laura Bauk. Ms. Bauk, welcome.
Okay, there we go. Good morning, Chair and MAC members. I'm Laura Bauk. I'm filling in for Mr. Hill this morning, who is up in DC representing Metro Plan Orlando at Atismo Pure Exchange. I'm going to start off my presentation the same way he has been and ask how many of you here currently own an electric vehicle? Okay, I've got one, and then I'll move Mike back there. Okay, so I suspect if I were to ask this question in about 5 years, we're going to see a lot more hands go up, and that's one of the reasons we think this is potentially good timing to do this sort of study. FHWA actually does not require that Metro Plan Orlando or any MPO really get involved in planning for EVs. But as an administrator of funds, and with the amount of funding that's being made available, grant funding that's being made available on the federal side, we think it behooves us to be involved in the planning and funding of this, of readiness in this space as we start to see the changes come through that we're expecting. So this is going to be a 12-month study, and we kicked it off just a couple of weeks ago. And some of the sort of high order objectives for the study include providing some background information on EV technologies, assessing existing conditions here in the region for EV charging and support equipment, and then looking towards the future for what we think the future needs may be, making some recommendations for policies and regulations that our local agencies may want to consider as you start to develop and implement your platforms for supporting these types of vehicles. We want to coordinate with our utilities to think about how power systems in the region may need to change to support these types of vehicles. And then we want to develop a framework for monitoring how we're doing in terms of EV readiness in that space. So sort of thinking about how this study fits in, FDOT already has a plan in place for how they're going to provide for charging and support infrastructure for EVs on the state system. And then here locally, City of Orlando and Orange County have already started to do some thinking in the space and thinking about where mobility hubs may make sense rather. And then I know Osceola County is also doing their own EV readiness study. And so we really want to just have a plan in place that sort of contemplates what a robust EV charging and support infrastructure may look like on a regional scale to support some of our local jurisdictions that may not have started to think about that in this space. So this is a one slide presentation, and what's shown on the slide are the 5 of the 7 tasks that are going to be included as a part of this study. The other 2 that aren't shown are more administrative. So looking at that first bullet, our topic specific workshops. Often what we'll do as we embark on a study is convene a steering committee to help us move through the study. And we're looking at things a little bit differently this time. And we want to have some workshops that are going to think about each of the tasks that are in a part of the study and help us think through what the methodology may be, what the best methodology may be to complete those tasks. We're not quite sure yet about if we're going to be sending individualized invites or if we're going to just sort of open it up for people who may be interested in participating, but we're anticipating that attendees to the workshops may include our advisory committee members, sort of experts in the field, other interested stakeholders. So stay tuned, we'll let you know how that proceeds. And some of the topics that we expect to sort of touch on in the individual workshops include things like a market demand analysis, looking at our siting analysis, thinking about the best methodology for public outreach, and then as we get to that monitoring piece of thing, thinking about what our goals and performance measures may be. Looking at that second bullet point, the electric vehicle supply and equipment assessments, some of the things that we plan to do as a part of that task include first, evaluating the existing supply of EVs. There are different types of EVs, so we'll be doing some data collection there to understand sort of statewide and then here in the region specifically what the penetration rate is there. We'll include an evaluation of how EVs impact infrastructure and the environment a little bit differently than gas-powered vehicles. For instance, we know that EVs on average tend to be a little bit heavier, which has some maintenance impacts on our roadways, so we'll be taking a look at that. As a part of this task, we'll also be looking at issues related to how well existing charging stations are functioning. Some of you may have seen articles or heard about, there are sometimes you'll get to a station and some of the charging equipment just isn't working or is not available. So we'll be sort of thinking through some of the issues there. And then we'll be doing a summary of sort of existing federal, state, and then local policies within this space. Looking at the next bullet, the charging infrastructure analysis, what we plan to embark on under that task include looking at the existing supply of charging infrastructure in the region. We know that one of the barriers to entry for EVs, in addition to the price, tends to be concern about being able to charge vehicles, not just for daily use, but for long distance travel. So we'll be looking at that. At this point, the vast majority of EV owners tend to be more affluent people, but moving forward, as that adoption rate starts to increase, we expect to see different demographics start to own EVs. And so we'll be thinking about what we need to have in place to support those people who may live in a multifamily housing unit, that sort of thing, where they can't necessarily just plug in their vehicles at home every night. So that'll be an important part of that task. We'll also be working with our utilities to understand what improvements they're making now, what investments they're making, and how they're thinking about those investments to make sure that the electric grid can support EV charging as we see that adoption rate start to tick up. The next bullet, public outreach. Really, the intent for the public outreach as part of the study is going to be for educational purposes. I think some of us in this room are maybe more familiar with EVs, but broadly, as we've seen in some of our past regional surveys that we do, that's not necessarily the case with everyone. So we'll be thinking about the best way to get the messaging out and what types of messaging we want to share. And then as we move towards the end of the study, we'll be thinking about planning and monitoring how we can make sure that we're actually moving the needle to prepare for EV readiness within the region. And with that, that's all I have to share with you today. We'll be back, I'm sure, to make some further updates and probably be back around this time next year to let you know about our findings and recommendations.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, is the purpose of the study just to figure out what we need to prepare in the future because of what the demand will be for the owners of EV, or is it actually to promote the ownership of EVs?
It'll be more on the first to assess what the demand is and then to come up with sort of thinking about where infrastructure may be needed here regionally. Like I said, City of Orlando and Orange County already have some sort of siting ideas in place for where they want to may add additional public infrastructure. And so we'll just be looking at that more holistically for the region and saying, okay, well, we know that FDOT has these plans for these areas and Orange County has plans for these areas. What else do we need to cover to make sure we have a robust system in place?
EVs don't pay any gas tax and therefore they don't promote anything to the road infrastructure, but we're going to spend a lot of money to accommodate for it. It seems to me needs to be a little bit of a balance or a trade-off. And then there's other issues, not just infrastructure, but pricing that's pretty prohibitive.
Agreed.
Even down the road when the battery wears out, it's very expensive to replace the battery and you have to be pretty well off to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And those sorts of things that I think we'll be discussing quite a bit. I don't know that we'll be able to have the answers for those, but we'll, sort of promote thinking in that space and talk about what discussions are being had at the state.
Yeah, I was hoping it's primarily just to see what the demand will be in the future as opposed to trying to push it that way because I think it's premature at the moment.
Correct.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Anderson.
I actually agree with John, with Mayor Dallas on a number of things having to do with electric vehicles. But we at Winter Park, we actually own our own power company. And so we buy and then buy wholesale and sell retail. And we've just finished a 2050 plan for that power company.
Oh.
And within the body of that power company assessment is adoption forecasts for electric vehicles. And whether it's forced or just market driven, or how long it's going to happen, there are assumptions built into that. So are y'all going to do your own? Is that going to be part of the assumption is what drives the adoption of electric vehicles?
There will be a market analysis. Yes, that's part of the study.
Well, maybe I'm just sharing that, we have there's one buried in our report. And I also know that OUC and Siemens did their own sort of renewable forecast. And within the depth of those two reports are some assumptions and what drives the assumptions of electric vehicle adoption. One of it happens to be cost. One of it happens to be advances in technology. They consider if there was a public policy hand at work, what would it do to change adoption rates? But I'm just sharing with you that there's starting points out there at OUC and Winter Park. So
thank you, Mayor Anderson.
And
You
if
can't
you
see, but
send
I'm very
it-
excited right now. I will speak with
Contact
you after
me
the
and I'll
meeting
send you
about,
the two
okay, thank you.
reports.
I will indeed.
great.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for our last report, we have, last but not least, our Best Foot Forward annual report. Mr. Panza, please. Welcome. Did I say that correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
Panza?
I'll accept either one.
All right.
Thank you very much. My parents would say Panza. Yep. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Patrick Panza. I am the programs director for Bike Walk Central Florida. I've not met a lot of you, so I just want to kind of introduce myself a little bit. Programs director, I provide oversight and strategic direction to all of our programs at Bike Walk Central Florida, the nonprofit, including Best Foot Forward. So what we're here today specifically to talk about is the Best Foot Forward program and its annual progress. This is a program that we're happy to have been running in existence for, I believe we're going into our 12th year of operation now. And our footprint in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties has been a really, really great arena for us to continue to develop these efforts and work toward pedestrian safety. So we'll start at a real high level here, okay? Progress from 2012 into now we're in fiscal year 2024. So we operate this program in essentially across 4 arenas: enforcement, engineering, education, and evaluation. And so we've kind of summed up some of our efforts to date for you on the slide here. 12,500 citations and warnings and 680 enforcement details total within the enforcement arena. And we're working with our law enforcement partners to go out there at these crosswalks and provide education and enforcement. In the engineering arena, we've had a total of 326 total crosswalks in the region participate in the program. Some of those are in the program for 1 year, some of those are in the program for 4 or 5 years. But we try and be effective with each one of them and make improvements there. On the education side, to date, we've had 841 presentations and events, and that's a lot of people that we get to talk to and spread messaging to. Similarly, along that timeline, we've taken a look at some of the trends in what we are trying to address. We're trying to address fatalities, serious injuries, and safety for all those who are walking, biking, and rolling. So we put together this graph, and for the large part, you can kind of ignore the individual ebbs and flows between any particular bar on there. And let's just kind of look at the trends here. In the bars, we've got bike and ped deaths and incapacitating injuries. That's normalized per 100,000 population there. And the line shown is the percent of drivers yielding to pedestrians at program crosswalks. That's data from our program data. The takeaway from this is that as we see, we have an overall downward trend in these deaths and incapacitating injuries, and we see simultaneously an overall upward trend in the percent of drivers that are yielding to pedestrians at program crosswalks. And that's what we want to see. I'm not here today to say that we're doing it single-handedly. We all know that is not the truth, but we're happy to be a part of this, right? Now let's come down to the fiscal year level. In education outreach, so you can kind of see what this looks like on an annual basis. Across the 3-county region here, we've done 92 events and presentations. We've reached almost 10,000 people and distributed resources to at least each one of them there. In high visibility enforcement with our law enforcement partners, that totaled 71 crosswalk details, 522 warnings, and 315 citations. I don't focus so much on those warnings and citations, truth be told, because from a program's perspective, we do not really weigh in on whether the officers write a warning or a citation. We just require them to pass on the education material because it's the messaging that really is important to us. And we want to make sure that the drivers, we know invariably they're going to leave in a sort of sour mood from that interaction, but we want them to take home the right messaging. So if they do talk about it, they are educated on what they should be doing. On the engineering and evaluation side, we monitored 76 programs, crosswalks program-wide this past fiscal year, completed 379 data collection events, okay? And 7 total engineering improvements were implemented by our partners. So before I move on here, just a word about that set of partnerships. I want to say specifically that our coalition is doing very well. It's a very healthy coalition, and that membership there from community members to municipal partners, to county partners, to our local and regional agencies and our state agencies continues to grow. And we are very, very appreciative of that. We like to build those relationships and foster those relationships. And so outside of our core program components, going out there, doing data collection, going out with law enforcement, et cetera, we try our best to be involved as much as possible and support our partners in other efforts as well. And so some of those special projects and presentations that we've participated in, we've done walking audits with our partners. We've done specific site visits at our partners, and whether that may be a program crosswalk or not, you know, we want to be a team player and a member with all of our partners and help us reach all of our goals. We've done presentations to elected officials, of course, participated in workshops and steering committees. We pulled together that coalition for our annual Best Foot Forward Regional Summit. That took place in the spring of this year. We brought in a keynote speaker from Tampa. Her name is Brandy Miklas. She was the Chief Communications Officer, and she spoke to us and gave a really great informative presentation about the Tampa Moves initiative with Mayor Jane Castor. I believe it's Castor, I'm sorry. We had Gary Huttman as a guest speaker as well as Commissioner Uribe, and we gave out awards. So this is our opportunity to really kind of give back some recognition to our valued partners there. We had a great panel discussion after this keynote speaker, and we kind of pair that out across those E's. We had Sergeant Harmon from Apopka, really great guy, bring in that perspective from the enforcement side. Isai Chavez from Osceola County, bring in that engineering perspective. Jojo Sturm, who at the time was with Seminole County Crossing Guards, brought in the education components. The value from this event, and I love participating in it. It's really fantastic to have all of those people in the room together. And it's not just a meeting. We do workshops, we're listening to speakers, and we get an opportunity there for everybody to share their perspectives from their particular and respective arenas. And it really kind of breaks down some of those silos a little bit. You get to hear about what everybody's doing and their efforts in their arenas, and it really kind of helps to spur some ideas and creativity. The other stakeholder meetings that we've participated in, of course, we do our crosswalk site visits with partners. That's an offer that we provide to each of our municipal and county partners, where we can go back toward the end of the year or mid-year, visit the program crosswalks, do maybe a bit of an audit, and just kind of get the brainstorming going. What that's leading into is our crosswalk improvement plans that we provide for each crosswalk with recommendations. And then that kind of tails into the crosswalk workshops that happen annually, where we are reviewing the crosswalks that participated in the program. And that's the opportunity at that point for our partners to say, okay, let's keep paying attention to this one. We want to keep pushing efforts forward on this one. This one's doing great, for example. So let's move on to another one. And it was a really great process this year. We've got some new crosswalks in the program for fiscal year 24 that we're very excited about. And we're looking forward to continuing to bring improvements to the community. So a little bit more about each of these separate arenas that we're operating in. In enforcement, we do those quarterly. We did 71 crosswalk details with our partners this year. I want to focus here a little bit on this added value, media impressions and media placements. This year, as an organization, Bike Walk Central Florida made the decision to bring in a public relations and marketing group as a consultant to assist with these efforts. Now, they're assisting across all of our programs, but specifically for Best Foot Forward, we've seen a lot of really immediate benefits for that. I showed up at one of the crosswalk enforcements one time, I believe it was Q2, and I was about 5 minutes away. I got a call from one of my staff members that was there that said, "Hey, what's your ETA?" And I was like, "Well, I'm 15 minutes early. I'll be there very soon." And she said, "Well, there are 4 news outlets here that are ready for interviews." And I said, "Okay, I'll be there ASAP." So I drove at a moderate and responsible pace, and I got there, and myself and my team, we continued through that enforcement, 20 minutes crossing the crosswalk with law enforcement. We'd take a step back, clean ourselves up, do a live spot on the 30-minute mark, do it again. And it was a really, really phenomenal morning. And I can say that we've never had that problem before. We're really happy to see that improvement happening. So 55 media placements, almost $2 million of media impressions, estimated earned value of $330,000. So this is really fantastic stuff here. Couple pictures here. I'll zoom through these in the interest of time. We really love taking these group pictures with our law enforcement partners out there, and we've got a real great catalog of them so far. It's all smiles. So this is what I want to get down to. And we heard a little bit about behavioral change earlier today. And so I'm really happy to share a couple of these examples with you, because program-wide, we love to tout the effectiveness of this program. But we also like to take a look at, well, how are these individual efforts in these enforcement engineering? How can these help? And the recognition that it's not always possible to do the full top to bottom treatment to every crosswalk that we interact with. So what can we do and what are the effects of that? So let's look at enforcement specifically. These are results of some targeted enforcement efforts. In Seminole County here at Eagle Circle and Eagle Boulevard, the Sheriff's Office conducted 3 enforcement operations in fiscal year 2023, distributing 24 warnings and 11 citations. There were no engineering improvements at this crosswalk during this period of time. There was no restriping, Nothing changed, okay? However, when we started, before, the data we've collected there before those enforcement operations, we had an average driver yield rate of 46%. That's a little less than half of the drivers yielding according to the Florida state statute, as they should for pedestrians. During the last half of the year after those enforcements, that yield rate average had increased to 58%. And we have multiple examples of these, some of them much larger. St. Cloud, Budinger Avenue and Peghorn Way went from 24% to 57%. After 3 enforcement operations. This is really, really encouraging. And this speaks specifically to behavioral change, which is a big part of our target with the Best Foot Forward program, right? Or the program's target, I should say, is to affect behavioral change for drivers and for pedestrians alike. So we know that this is working. We're getting out there, we're educating drivers. In a lot of these areas, this is the same people passing through over and over again, right? These are habitual routes. So it's not only just that it's themselves, there's only 18 warnings and citations here. That doesn't account for a 30+% increase. So they're talking to their friends, they're talking to their families. They might be talking to anybody that they can get a hold of after that day they got a ticket, right? So we're really happy to see this encouraging progress. 49% to 73% at this particular example in Apopka. Okay. So we've got a bunch of examples in there. I'm going to go to the next sort of categories. In education, total numbers I just want to present to you, 92 events and presentations we did this year, almost 10,000 people reached. We love, of course, taking pictures here with our community members. This is that sort of second part of putting the right messaging out there. It's not just about educating drivers while they're driving. It's about educating drivers and the future drivers. So we're at our community events. We're partnering with any community organization we possibly can to distribute these materials and make sure that people are learning what they need to do. We want to get them talking. Again, on the media side, on the social media platforms, we're growing our audience continually. It's nice to have over 100,000 impressions with our messaging without actually leaving the house or the office. And we'll continue to improve and tell those stories so that people can share them. So now on the engineering side, the same type of comparison here, but now we're looking at, well, what can be the specific effects of low-cost engineering implementations? Mill Run Boulevard and Mill Slough Road in Kissimmee, our baseline average for driver yield rate at this location was 26% throughout 2021. In 2022, the city of Kissimmee decided to make some low-cost engineering improvements here. So we're not talking about a huge investment here. There was a RRFB, a flashing beacon there, and that's going to be probably the most expensive piece there. We also did advanced warning pavement markings, the shark's teeth there, advanced warning signage with that stop here for PEDS sign. And actually that crosswalk was already fully striped as a special emphasis. So after these improvements, and since that time, our average driver yield rate has increased to 69%. That's starting to get to that operation range that we really, really want. And overall, this is a fairly small investment. And we're not talking about full signalization. We're not talking about overhead pedestrian hybrid beacons. These are quick projects that can be implemented, and they're very flexible budget-wise. Other examples as well, 36% to 75% at this location in Castleberry. This is an interesting spot here. We've got light industrial, we've got a big Target. There's destinations and origins. There are pedestrians and scooter riders and bicyclists of all ages going through here. We've done enforcement here. Really, really great set of improvements done here with the stop bar and the paddle sign, that sort of gateway treatment. And we saw a massive increase here. Really, really happy to see this go from 36% to 75%. Thacker Avenue in Kissimmee, Trail in Kissimmee, kind of reworked that crosswalk to a very recognizable special emphasis markings, the advanced warning pavement markings and signage again, and an RRFB starting at 38% in fiscal year 21 and 22, all the way up to 68%. So we've got these really, really phenomenal examples. The Oakland Roundabout, a little bit of an outlier in this sense because that is a big project, but we also want to, highlight the effectiveness of additional markings and big changes from engineering. This went from 64% to 80%. Another example in Osceola County, 29% to 67% with an RRFB and pavement markings. I believe this is the last one we have here, Lockwood Boulevard and Carillon Park in Seminole County, from 29% to 35%. This is one specifically that we're going to continue working on, but it's very encouraging to see just with a little bit of signage and pavement markings, we can get that initial bump in improvement and then continue working with our partners to identify steps forward. So I also like to take the opportunity to give some other updates about what Bike Walk Central Florida is doing across our programs. Mainly to highlight that there's a lot of synergy that's happening, and we take it upon ourselves as an organization to look for continual opportunities to not only spread the messaging of Best Foot Forward, but also the principles and the lessons learned from us as an organization and within that coalition to other efforts. So we worked with the city of Apopka this past year and put together an active transportation network study. This is not just for any particular user group. This is for all active transportation, right? And, you know, it was a really, really phenomenal process for us to go through, and it was a really great experience because we're able to take all of those lessons learned from Best Foot Forward specifically and apply that and share that information with the city of Apopka and residents to move forward with a plan. Another program we operate, Healthy West Orange Trails Connections. We've been working to promote, activate, and enhance the trail system in West Orange County. This is a really great opportunity to take advantage of some of the overlap in our coalitions there. Like the town of Oakland participates in Best Foot Forward as a partner, a small city partner. The town of Oakland is on the steering committee in Healthy West Orange Trails Connection. And so we get to have a lot of conversations with them, and it's really, really fantastic being at the same table and being able to take a holistic look at safety within these municipalities and counties. Now, the last one, I hope you know about our Bike 5 event. We had a really great event this year. It continues to grow. If you've never participated, I do encourage you to do so at some point. The next one will be October 26th next year. This is a really, really great opportunity to provide education and users of an experience of biking in a safe route across 5 cities here in the area. And that's it. I'll leave you with that. And if you have any questions, I'd love to help address them today.
Commissioner Ramos.
I have a question and a comment. First of all, thank you very much. Great partnership with the town of Oakland. It's been fabulous. And one thing is that I know you have not mentioned, well, it's bike and walk, and the previous was electric vehicles, but the fast growing golf carts, right, in Oakland, town of Oakland, we're real big with that, Winter Garden, Ocoee. And we have 2 crossroads on Oakland Avenue, 2 cross points that we're going to have for golf carts. Is there anything that you have available like this, or would you guys be part of it to help alert people to stop there for the golf carts? And I see that as another potential accidents in the future.
No, I think that's a really, really interesting topic. I can say, I don't think that we have any on-hand materials like really specific to the topic of golf carts. However, I'd love to continue the conversation and see what we might be able to help provide out there. You know, we got a lot of opportunities to throw on some extra messaging. Yeah.
Another thing, Patrick Panza, can you repeat all this in a radio station?
I'm sure I could pull it off at some point. Yeah.
I have participated in the crosswalk enforcement and was able to do the Bike 5 this year. So they were both very good events. So I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, participating in these events and giving us those opportunities. I'm sorry I didn't catch you at Bike 5. I definitely would have said hello if I could have. I visited all 5 cities that day. I was running around doing a lot, but
Going at a moderate speed though, right?
I was toting bananas from city to city going all
That was
over
very
the place.
Another point is Emily back from her maternity leave or is she still?
Officially, Emily is still on maternity leave until January 1. My second job is keeping her from working during her maternity leave. So, yeah, she's doing great.
It's an important job. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we are on general information. Tab 5, make sure you take a look at that. If there's anything that has to do with your city or your area. Our upcoming next MetroPlan board meeting will be next week, December 13th, 9 a.m. for the governing board. And our next MAC meeting, mark your calendars, February 8th at 9:30 back here in this room. And do we have any comments or questions from committee members? I have just one from FDOT, or who can answer it. If you have an area, an intersection or whoever wants to answer, that you have people always blocking the intersection, people can't, and it's not a 4-way, it's a side road. Have you found that the boxes that they draw on the road help because the sign doesn't seem to be doing the job? So we need to keep that area close, because we've had quite a few wrecks there and people trying to zip in. Does that help? And if it does, I'd like to have a discussion offline at some point.
Problem or whatnot, but sorry, thank you for the mic. I will get used to it, I promise. But is there a particular intersection you're looking at?
Yeah, it's on Orange Avenue, right down, it's a small little road, but Lake Gatlin, it's a residential road, but it's not very well seen, which is why probably cars block it. There's a sign that says don't block it, but it's blocked all the time. They can't get in and out, and we've had several wrecks there. And I just wondered if a painted box might help grab the driver's attention to leave that open.
I will definitely look into that and see what we can.
We can talk after, that'd be great, thanks. Okay, anyone else? All right, let's see. Public comments, do we have anyone? Please use the raise hand function and you will be, if you're online, if you will be recognized to dial *9 on your phone keypad, and we'll unmute your mic. After you're recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes. Do we have any online?
Mr. Chair, we have Miss Joanne Canellis online.
Okay,
Hi, this is Joanne Canellis. Can you hear me?
we can hear you, Joanne. Go ahead.
I'm Joanne Canellis, 320 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Yeah, we like to have this transit. Yeah, I try to say something here. Hold on. Sorry, I'm getting my juice here. We need a mass transit. Mass transit. Okay? And like a 24-hour bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime. And we need this bus on Country Club Road South, please. Okay?
Okay,
And
you said Country Club Road?
yes, we need this bus on Country Club Road, and we need a bus stop at Country, corner of Country Club and Estella. Please.
Okay.
Okay. And we need the mass transit. You hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I know the New York has it, but we can have it too. Why not? Here.
Is that it, Joanne?
Yeah, and we need to bus back to the at the what do you call it? The Oviedo Boulevard as well, too, by the pool. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much. Always tuning in. All right, any others? Are there any written comments or phone comments that were submitted?
There were none.
None? All right. With that, in public, anyone in here? All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and have a great holiday.